Just 2 months ago, it would have been hard to imagine seeing Iran's president sitting next to his Azerbaijani counterpart. After a series of military drills Azerbaijan carried out near Iran's border that Turkey also took part in, relations between Baku and Tehran took a turn for the worse. But tensions seem to have eased during a regional summit that took place last week in Turkmenistan's capital, Ashgabat. The ECO Summit, which brings together Central Asian countries, was also the venue for Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's first meeting with President Raisi since he took office back in August. The talks followed a series of earlier agreements the two countries made to tackle security issues along their border. The ongoing crisis in Afghanistan has also presented joint challenges to Turkey and Iran, from refugee flows to terrorism. So, are these two neighbors ready to tackle regional challenges? And what obstacles could get in the way? And to discuss that, joining me now from Istanbul is Talha Kose. He is the Brussels coordinator for SETA, a research and policy think tank. And from Tehran, Mohammad Marandi. He is a political analyst. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Mohammad, now that the two leaders agreed to improve relations comprehensively, how's that going to play out?
Well, it is important that Iran and Turkey have close relations because they are obviously the two largest countries in the region with the largest populations, and they have enormous resources. Both countries have similar interests in the region. Their interests differ, of course, in some areas, but they have enormous similarities in their support for the Palestinian people, and also in trying to formulate independent foreign policies. Iran, of course, is totally independent. It's outside of NATO. Turkey has an ambivalent place, both within NATO, but also with interests that lie beyond NATO. So there's a lot of room for maneuver between the two countries. And even though the two countries had very different interests in certain areas, they were able to manage them and to sustain economic and political and cultural ties despite that. So I think there's a certain maturity that exists both in Tehran and Ankara that prevent relations from deteriorating as we've seen across the region and beyond.
So, Talha, how have tensions between Iran and Azerbaijan over the military drills at the border impacted Tehran-Ankara line?
I think both Tehran and Ankara are aware of the limitations on this issue, and they don't want to deteriorate their relationship. So this is a secondary issue. Of course, Turkey has beyond good relations with Azerbaijan. I mean, they are just two, brotherly nations. And what happens at Azerbaijan definitely affects Turkey. But I think Turkey is playing a constructive role, finding a middle way between Iran and Azerbaijan, rather than taking a clear side in this issue. So improvement of the relations between Baku and Tehran is important for Turkey, because Tehran is an important economic partner and important regional actor that plays a significant role in stabilization of the entire region. So in that sense, I think Turkey definitely has strong relations with Azerbaijan, but it's in Turkey's interest to have better, more constructive relations between Baku and Tehran, and Turkey is struggling for that.
So, Mohammed, Iranian Foreign Minister Amir Abdullahian recently said on Twitter that the sides agreed to talk about the comprehensive improvement of relations and the removal of some obstacles. What types of obstacles were they talking about?
Well, for Iran, the main issue is the Israeli regime in this region. And even though Iran has extraordinarily close ties with the people of Azerbaijan, Marand, as you know, is a city right beside Tabriz. The relationship between the two peoples are very close. The people of Iran see Azerbaijan as more than brotherly, much more than brotherly. But the problem for Iran is the Israeli regime, whether the Israeli regime is active in Baku or in the United Arab Emirates or anywhere else close to Iranian territory. That is an issue that concerns Iran. With regard to Turkey, I think that the issues that are of concern is those areas where the Israeli regime and NATO are concerned. Wherever we see NATO interests absent and Turkey independent of NATO, we see a strong convergence of ties and relations between Iran and Turkey.
So, Talha, could you talk about how the chaotic situation in Afghanistan could affect ties between Turkey and Iran, and how could both countries work to address the country's problems? Is there a common will in that regard?
Of course, I mean, the economic situation in Afghanistan really is very negative, and they are expecting some kind of famine in the coming months, which may trigger another cycle of migration. So migration issue is a problem for Tehran, and it's also a problem for Turkey as well. The other thing is the problem of extremism. So Iran is clearly worried about potential extremist groups infiltrating and destabilizing Iran, and some terror groups are stationed there. And Turkey is also concerned. I mean, it's a little bit far threat, but I think what's happening there can also affect Turkey as well. So stability in Afghanistan is both in the interest of Tehran and Ankara, and unfortunately, the international community is not very much interested in what's happening in Afghanistan, but we can see the potential disruption, potential problems in the coming months from the Afghanistan. So the good thing may be a possible cooperation between Tehran and Ankara on Afghanistan, at least bringing the issue to international community and to find the common ground. And
Yes.
also, economic side of the story is also negatively affecting. I mean, Turkey already having some economic issues, and Iran is also facing with the sanctions, and economic problems in Afghanistan may affect both countries in that regard.
So, Mohammed, what's the Iranian view on the Taliban? There were recent border clashes between Iran and Iranian security officials and the Taliban. Iran said the clashes were a misunderstanding, but is there a risk of such incidents to repeat again?
Well, the Afghanistan side of the border is not well regulated, as you can expect, and as I think you can understand quite clearly. And the Iranians are trying to help bring about a greater dialogue between the different communities in Afghanistan, and also trying to prevent the country from moving towards starvation. The United States and the Europeans are effectively starving the people of Afghanistan, just as they've done in Yemen and Syria and elsewhere. It's truly devastating and cruel what they're doing through sanctions. But Iran is trying to cooperate with the Taliban. The Iranians believe that Western countries would like to see conflict between Iran and the Taliban, but Iran is completely against any sort of violence inside Afghanistan. And while the Taliban is itself, they come from a minority group for the most part, the Pashtun, but the other minorities, the Iranians are encouraging them to remain calm and to engage in dialogue. And Iran is pushing the Taliban to engage in dialogue with the Tajiks, with the Hazaras, with the Uzbeks. And I think as we move forward, the Taliban sees and will see that they need these other communities in order to keep the country stable. The problem really is inside the Taliban, because there are factions that are extreme, the Haqqani faction, and there are factions that are more moderate. And I think the question that we'll be facing in the coming months is how all these factions deal with one another in future.
So, Talha, how are Iran and Turkey cooperating in Afghanistan, and what would a civilized Afghanistan mean for both countries?
I mean, there is not a strong cooperation for the moment, so there is no framework for expanding the relations between Turkey and Iran on Afghanistan issue. But Turkey has certain standards. I mean, to make a stable Afghanistan, I think there should be inclusive political system, inclusive cultural system that would incorporate all the groups in the country, and also some accountable government that can control its borders and provide security. So in this issue, I think both countries are also agree on the issue that there should be an inclusive and responsible government in Afghanistan. So they have stronger ties with different groups. But
yes.
for Turkey, having a strong relationship, a working relationship with the Taliban is important. I think in that regard, Turkey is a little bit far in terms of cooperation. But we also know that Taliban is very fragmented, and there may be some major disagreements between the fragments of the Taliban. So this is also a risky situation for Turkey.
Yes.
So Turkey wants to help Afghanistan improve relations, but there may be some disagreements among the Afghan actors.
One last very quick question, Mohammed. How is Turkey's efforts to revive its relations with some Arab and Gulf countries is being viewed by Tehran?
It is important for Iran that all the regional countries have good relations, and Iran is also working in that direction. The new Iranian president's priority is good relations with neighboring countries, Asian countries, and the global south. And the more integration we have in this region, the less possibility there will be for external actors, especially the United States, NATO, and the Israeli regime, to create division between the different countries. So the greater the integration, the better it is for everyone.
So Tehran is happy about it, I guess. Gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.